And Brian, it's now time to move on into our next team, and that is the Michigan Wolverines. And this one is a very easy one to start off with. This is a team looking like they're going to go to the college football playoff. They are winning. I know they had that one game against Colorado you wanted to rag on them for in the last one, but they started out slow.
They were terrible in the beginning, 28-0.
But then the Iowa game happens. They lose a heartbreaker there. Yeah, they win the next one. Then they get a game stolen from them in a game where they stopped him at the line. It wasn't a first down. Go back and look at it. I am completely against the call on the field still to this day. Michigan State should have won that game, but they lose to Ohio State. Season's over. They're not going to the college football playoff. So this one's easy, Brandon. Is this the year Harbaugh, with everything he's bringing in, the guys he's bringing back, led offensively by Wilton Spate on offense at quarterback, is this the year Harbaugh and the Wolverines put it together and represent the Big Ten in the college football playoff? That's where we got to start in this one. The next three teams, we're probably going to start with where are they college football playoff-wise, because any three of them could represent the Big Ten in the playoff.
Well, let's be honest. There's a lot of personnel turnover right now. They have to replace 11 of 13 tacklers on the defensive side of the football for what was the nation's #1 defense. So that is not good. Or I should say, that'll be a challenge. That'll be a challenge. Wilton Spate is back at quarterback, and that's huge for this team. To have Wilton Spate back at quarterback, to have him leading the pack, that's really big. But then it's going to be, will the young talent at receiver rise up and kind of rise up to where they were in their recruiting class? Like, they're supposed to be good. Will they be? Will they be good this year? Will they realize, I don't want to say realize what's at stake, but realize that, hey, you know, the last couple of years, people have kind of been, is Michigan going to the playoff? Is Michigan going to the playoff? Is Michigan going to the playoff? They have not. And I feel like this is the year where if Michigan doesn't go, do people start to say, all right, well, you know, Jim Harbaugh's good. He's always going to have a good team. They're always going to go to a pretty good bowl game. But okay, Ohio State, Penn State, what do you guys got? I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm saying after a while, you want to, and I understand there's only 4 spots in the college football playoff, but you need to be able to make it there. You have to. If you're Michigan, it is a disappointment if you do not win the Big Ten East. And then it is a disappointment if you do not win the entire Big Ten. And then it's a disappointment if you don't go to the college football playoff. I think it's simple as that, because that's what Michigan expects. But I think that you're right. I think that they're so close, Ricky, right now, that if they do not make it, if they do not win the East, they do not win the Big Ten, people are going to start questioning, how good is Michigan? Good enough to win in the regular season, good enough to get a bowl game, but not good enough to win it all.
And this is where the voice of reason comes in. And I know you usually don't either hear my voice or see my voice when you think of the voice of reason, but here it is. I think that Michigan fans temper the expectations this year. And the reason why I say that is Jim Harbaugh came in 2015, a decently built squad from Brady Hoke before, was able to do what Brady Hoke couldn't, though. Got the most out of his players for a 10-3 season, 6-2 in the conference. They won the Citrus Bowl, finished 3rd in the East. Coaches, they were 11th overall. AP, they were the 12th ranked team at the end of it. Then last year, he took that team that he already kind of came in and coached them very well. They just got older and more experienced. 10-3 season, 7-2 in the conference. Yeah, they lost in the Orange Bowl, but they were a top 10 team, coaches and AP. This year, the reason why I say temper the expectations is because this is going to be the first year at Michigan that Jim Harbaugh is going to have to do something that he hasn't had to do before. And that is go through, kind of pull everything back and kind of go through some growing pains, especially on offense, because this will be one of the youngest teams that Michigan sees overall in some time. And I feel like what's going to happen is, I mean, I kind of hate that they have that Florida game first, because I feel like if the development process has to be sped up here. And that's going to be the real thing that keeps Michigan either in or out of the college football playoff, is how can they develop young guys and get them ready to go. Like you said, 11 tacklers on the defensive side need to be replaced, and that was the number one defense that we had a year ago. I feel like temper the expectation, because if they lose to Florida, if they lose Penn State and Ohio State, and those are the only 3 losses they have, let's say they do lose one to like a Michigan State or an Indiana. Let's say they have 4 losses. I say you look at it and you go, you know what? The expectations should have been a little bit less this year based on what we had. A younger team. This was one that needed to develop. This team's going to get better. Jim Harbaugh will be able to get them there, because there's no question that Jim Harbaugh can coach. We've seen it at both the NFL level and the college level. And the thing that I find the most interesting is at the 49ers and now at Michigan, we've kind of seen the same thing. When he came in, it was a 49er team that was dysfunctional. Head coaches couldn't get, like, we were all remembering, like, the lasting one that we remember is the Singletary days before that. Then they had the interim. Then it was Jim Harbaugh. And everyone's like, man, Singletary can't get this roster to do anything. Harbaugh comes in, boom, this roster does things. Same thing with Michigan. Why is Brady Hoke not doing anything? Why is this team not winning? Brady Hoke's gone. Harbaugh comes in. Boom, 10-3 seasons, first 2 out. But now, like I said, a younger team, not inexperienced because he has guys here and there, but just a younger team overall that needs to develop. And that's going to be the big story for Michigan. However, the bad thing is they're a Michigan team where I say temper the expectations, but no one will. Everyone's going to say playoff or bust, and then everyone's going to be looking for, if they don't make the playoffs, they're going to be calling for heads, which will make the next season for Jim Harbaugh not too pleasant, I think, in Ann Arbor.
Well, Ricky, I'll be honest with you, isn't it playoff or bust? If you don't make the playoff, then it didn't matter. Great, you got a bowl game. Cool. We're used to that under Jim Harbaugh now. We've had that for a couple years.
And that's why
when are we finally going to get into the real stuff? That's what people are going to be asking. That's what people want. The winning is nice. The winning, the blowing teams out in the regular season, I mean, that's all fine and good. But if it doesn't end you with a spot in the college football playoff, then it didn't matter.
And that's the thing I do want to say about the schedule that I like. The Florida game, I'm not too sure how. At this point, I don't know if I'm going to pick Michigan to win that game.
That game could go either way. That game could go either way. It's going to be such a good game.
That game could go either way. We have questions on both sides. We have the youthful Harbaugh's Wolverines that we're already talking about they need to develop, and that's going to be game 1. But Florida, we talked about it before. They have, which quarterback are we going to see? Are we going to see Zaire? Are we going to see Felipe Frank? But let's say they lose that game for the sake of argument. The thing that I love about their schedule is 2 things. One, they could win out the rest of the way, and at 1 loss in a Big Ten championship could be in the running for a playoff spot. And 2, when they get to Penn State and Ohio State, well, Ohio State's always in the same spot on the schedule. They are at late October, late November, to where hopefully if you're a Michigan fan, you're sitting there and you're hoping that by the time we get to that Penn State game, we have gone through the Cincinnati's, the Air Force, the Purdue, the Michigan State, the Indiana, to where we get to that game and these guys have come together. They've developed to where by that time we're looking at it and we're going, yeah, this is a team that can beat Penn State, that can beat Ohio State. They just need to excel that development time so that their guys are ready for that Penn State game. The only difficult part, Michigan State should be a lot better, and Indiana could be a little bit better than they were last year.
So, Ricky, here's a couple of things, and then we'll talk about it after. So, 3 things. First half scoring for Michigan last year, 293 points in the first half. Their opponents had 80 all year long. Rushing touchdowns, Michigan with 41, and their opponents with 9. And then red zone scoring, Michigan scored 91% of the time in the red zone. They held opponents to 71% red zone scoring. Opponents got to the red zone 28 times. Michigan got to the red zone 68 times. Those stats are stats for a team that should be in the college football playoff. They have not been. That needs to change. That needs to change. And this year, Michigan is changing. They don't have some of the big name guys that they had. They still have some, but they don't have all. They lose a lot on defense, but they are hopefully reloading that defense up. And Michigan is not going to say this is a rebuild year. They'll say it's a reload. They'll say it's we're working through just some adjustments. That's what they'll say, but it is.
They are.
But it is kind of a rebuilding mode.
A little bit.
I would say especially on the defensive side of things.
Which is led by, got to give a shout out to Mo Hurst. Mo Hurst, friend of the podcast. Got to give a shout out to him. He's going to be one of the leaders on this defense that is losing the 11 guys.
They're losing a lot there. Losing a lot there. That's not to say that the guys coming up aren't going to be good. It's not going to say that the returning guys aren't going to be good, but it's to say that Michigan was as good as it was in the last 2 years and wasn't able to make it to the playoffs. They now maybe won't be as dominant as what they were, and they're still shooting to try and get to the playoffs. So I'm just trying to put that into perspective. And I don't hold anything against Michigan. I may be called out for, oh, you're a Michigan hater. I have nothing against Michigan. I think it's beautiful. Traverse City is a beautiful place to go visit. Very nice.
Especially the beach bums. Gotta love the beach bums.
But I think that I'm just trying to put in perspective everything that has happened for Michigan and everything that's currently happening for Michigan. Ricky, the floor is yours, buddy. You've been trying to cut me off for the last 30 seconds.
It's the point that you make where you're like, well, when did you get over the hump? When do you win the division? I looked 2 years ago, Harbaugh's first year. The Utah game, they lose 24-17. I take that, it looks like a bad loss because Utah, they should have been able to beat Utah, but that was Harbaugh's first game as a college coach. A first game coming from the NFL to college, which is a very different atmosphere. Other than that, the only 2 teams they lost against, a number 7th ranked Michigan State team that was a 27-23 loss, and I believe that was Jeremy Langford's senior year. So they had that going for them with Michigan State. And then Ohio State, they got blown out 43-13. But that was a good Ohio State team, number 8th in the nation. They came back and beat Florida in their bowl game, like I said, the Citrus Bowl. Then last year, they started off slow against Colorado. They almost lost to Indiana. The only thing with that Indiana game that I look at is how much hangover and how much shell shock did you get from that Iowa game? Because the Iowa game happened, and then the Indiana game happened, and I just felt like they were still feeling it, like, whoa, we lost that Iowa game. But still, 2 losses in the conference. Yeah, they should have beat Iowa. They started out slow. They couldn't get anything going. They got what they got coming to them. And then in the Ohio State game, they play a great game. It gets left up to a call that's questionable. I'll leave it at that. in double overtime. They lose that game 30-27. I look at this team, and even if they don't make the college football playoff again, I don't look at it as like man, we didn't make the college football playoff. Will we ever? I look at it more as you know what? Next year will be the time. Because I look at this team and I wonder, after...
Such a cubby mindset.
No. After this is what I'll probably... Let's say they do 2 losses again, maybe the 3. Maybe we'll go with the 2015 mindset. They lose the first game, they lose 2 in conference. Part of me would look at it and go, you know what? They missed out on an opportunity. 2016 was their year. It was their year, and the Iowa game screwed it up because it kind of messed with their momentum late in the season. But then another part of me will say, you know what? This is a team that still has guys. I mean, Spate's only a junior. He could come back for senior year. You've got Chris Evans, who's only a freshman, I believe. Ty Isaac, he's the only upperclassman with this running back situation. You've got guys to where they're going to grow into another year where who's to say 2018 is not like the 2016 team. And we're just looking at 17 as, well, that was the year they were inexperienced and youthful, and now they're reloaded, ready to take on Ohio State. I'm looking at them, and really after this year, Braxton Miller, he's in the NFL. Cardell Jones, he's in the NFL. JT Barrett's not going to be there forever. I know that they'll have a next guy, but will that next guy be what they have had? And will that be the time Michigan can then overtake Ohio State?
So here's the thing that I want to talk about really quickly is that Wilton Spate is going to have to be the key player this year. He's going to have to be the key guy this year. And, with what he did last year, over 2,500 yards, 18 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. That's great, especially with the only 7 interceptions. But even if he's able to limit that, he is I think, the right person to be the leader for this team. And he's going to have to be the leader for this team. And he's going to be able to work behind a pretty strong, solid line. That's going to be good. They're going to be able to hopefully give him time that he needs to be able to throw and find his young receivers. And I think if he's able to do that, if he's able to move the ball on third down, move the chain, move the ball down the field, limit turnovers, be effective, find his guys, manage the game well, I think that Michigan will be just fine. And when I say just fine, I mean Michigan football fine, like 10 wins again.
Yeah.
And I think that they'll be okay. I'm just saying that there's so many things that Michigan has done to this point that are right, and they still have not made the college football playoff. Like last year, you take a look at it, and through the first 7-8 games of the season, Michigan is going to the college football playoff. Is Michigan going to win the college football playoff? That was a discussion. But it's crazy how one game, one bad half,
everything.
Changes the outlook and the complexity of an entire field. And Michigan was part of that field, and then boom, they disappeared. They were no longer part of that. And if anyone was getting in from the Big Ten last year, outside of Ohio State,
it was going to be Michigan.
No. Penn State.
Really?
That's what I would have said, and that's what a lot of people would have said, many coming from Pennsylvania. But I think that Penn State played better down the stretch than Michigan did.
You're saying with how things did play out, not like how they. Okay.
Yes, with
then
how things
Penn
did
State.
play out. I would have said Penn State.
I thought
was
you
the
were
next
saying
team.
if Michigan would have won that Iowa game and then lost to Ohio State.
The way that things did play out, I would not have. But that's what I was trying to bring it back to, where how something as simple as one bad game and one loss there after 8 straight wins to start the season, or whatever they ended up being to start the season, so dominant of Michigan, they're going to be the team to go to the playoff. That one game changes the complexity of everything, and boom, down the stretch, they stunk. They weren't able to, the loss against Ohio State, give it to them. The loss against Iowa, not so much.
No, and
that's why I said the next team that would have gone in if it wasn't Ohio State,
would have been
Penn State, because of the way that they played in the middle of the season and down the stretch. They were the strongest team in that Big Ten, I think, probably outside of Ohio State. But that's the thing, and that's why Wilton Speight has to be the leader. He has to know what's at stake. He has to know that this is fully his team now, fully his team, and he's going to be the leader of it. And whatever he does, that's the direction they go. If he has a strong year, they go in that direction. If he suffers, they suffer. That's kind of what it is. Because I don't want to say that, you know, they don't have any leaders on defense, but they lost so many. They lost so many.
We're going to say it again, 11.
And they need new guys to come up and be the vocal guys and be the guys who are not afraid to take charge and really win over the rest of the guys on the defensive side or on the offensive side. But Michigan is going to be in an interesting spot this season, still expecting to be good, while working with completely new talent for the most part.
Well, and I want to turn the conversation on them. And before I do, the one thing I want to say, our lads let me down. Our lads let me down with the depth chart. They had it updated to where when I said freshman, take it as a sophomore. Ty Isaac, he was a senior last year. When I said junior, take it as a senior. They didn't update the classes. So the classes just add one to it for whatever I said. But this is where you guys come in. Michigan fans, we want to hear from you. Let us know down below in the comment section, what do you guys think for this team this year? And do you think that losing the 11 starters or the 11 tacklers on defense will play a big key or a big part to this season? And what do you see from Michigan? What if you don't make the college football playoff this year? How would you view it looking forward, especially with Jim Harbaugh as the head coach? Let us know down below in the comment section.